Rakshita, Rajesh, okay, Samyukta. How about others, folks who have joined through social media? So I can see the confirmation for the people who joined from a Zoom link. All right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining in on this live session with Manifold AI Learning. My name is Nachiketh Murthy, and I'll be your host today on this live webinar on one of the new series from Manifold AI Learning, that is Ask Me Anything. So the way that this session would progress is something like this. So on each and every session, we'll come up with a topic, and I'm going to answer some of the key aspects of each and every trending topic that we have got in AI industry. So we'll be covering what, and we'll be covering how, and we'll also cover why. So these are the three aspects that we'll be covering in each and every topic. So as part of today's session, it's about generative AI. So I'll talk about what is generative AI, how does generative AI would work, and why is it important for anyone in this field or anyone right now to learn this generative AI. And I'll also briefly touch base about maybe how you can get started with your learning journey. So that will help you to introduce you, that will actually introduce you to this concept of generative AI and that's importance. So that would be the overall agenda of this session, guys. Okay. So here uh, in this session. Okay. So here in this session, guys, so let's get started. So the agenda of the session is what is generative AI? So let's start with the definition and then we will be proceeding ahead. So folks, so is everyone clear with the agenda? So can we get started with today's session? So if yes, please confirm as good to start so that we'll get started with today's agenda. Rakshit, Uh, Rakshit, Damayanti, Due says will be what would be the starting plan to get into the AI as far as courses? Sure, Dewey. I'll also answer about the same. That's the overall agenda. Perfect. Thank you, Diksha, Samiksha. Okay, perfect, guys. So let's get started. So let's start by understanding what is this generative AI. See, the generative AI are special kind of system. We also call it as the branch of artificial intelligence. So here, one of the key thing or the speciality about this generative AI is here in this case, the system is able to generate. Okay, remember and hear closely. Okay, the system is able to generate the output based on the data it has come across. So if you think about the traditional machine learning or deep learning, what happens is we will have a data set. Now we will have a data set and we will provide the bunch of examples that we have got with us. And once we provide this bunch of examples, we'll be sending those bunch of examples to our machine learning algorithm, or it can be deep learning models. And this machine learning algorithms or deep learning model, they would go ahead and learn the patterns that we have got inside this data set. Now, once it learns the pattern, I can go ahead and ask a question about new data, and this machine learning algorithm or a deep learning algorithm, which we have built and trained on this given data set, this will go ahead and generate the answers, or we call it as generate the predictions. So it's something like this. Think of what you will do in your education. So throughout the year, you're going to learn the subject. So once you have learned the subject, you have understood what the overall subject is. Now in the examination, when someone asks a new question, you will make use of all your understanding from the pattern that you have learned throughout the year, and you're going to generate the response. So the same thing would happen in machine learning or deep learning. So the way it learns, it's depending on the algorithm that we'll be using. So it's a whole different topic. We can have it on a separate session on machine learning and deep learning. For now, remember that it's a way in which we learn the pattern in this given data set. So that is what is important to remember. And you're able to generate the response for the question based on the pattern that you have learned. That's the core machine learning and deep learning. Now, what is generative AI? Why is it so different? Well, this is a scenario where we are going to provide the data set. Okay, I'll provide a data. Let me just represent this box as a data itself. So let's say this is my data itself. Now, what I'll be doing is I'll provide this data set to my generative AI model. We call it as large language model. Okay, we'll provide this data set to this large language model. Now, this large language model or the generative AI model, it will learn the pattern that is present in this data set. Now, once it has learned the overall pattern, we call this large language model as a foundation model or a pre-trained model on this very large data set. Now, on this large model, we can go ahead and ask the question, and this large language model is able to do the task which has been trained upon, like on the data set that it has been trained upon. And it can also do the task even though which it has not been explicitly trained upon. Now that's an interesting. It's like it is able to solve the problem which was part of the syllabus, and it is able to try out the new problem which is not part of the syllabus. That's how simple you can put it, the capability of this large language model or this generative AI. So that means I can go ahead and train my large language model on a very large data set, maybe a Google News data set or Wikipedia data set. I can go ahead and train this large language model on this very large data set. Now, this large language model will learn everything that I have provided on the data. Now, I can go ahead and ask a question even though it has not been explicitly trained upon. Like, to simply put, I can go ahead and say, hey, can you tell me the translation of, let's say, I love coffee in French? So even though this model, even though it has not been explicitly trained for translation tasks, it is able to perform the translation. Now you can go ahead and ask the math problem. So how many of you guys have asked the math problem to the generative AI or ChatGPT? So if you have asked the math problem, say yes in the chat window. So I see most of the responses as yes, Sridhar, Samiksha, Sanketi, Samuel. See, most of you are saying as yes, and trust me, even I have done that. So here, do you think that this large language model has been trained to solve the explicit math problem that we have given? No, isn't it? So we just described the mathematics problem that we had in the English language, and it took that input and it is able to generate the response. So that's the fundamental aspect of this large language model. It is able to generate the response based on the training data it has been learned. So the this best thing is when it is generating the response, it is generating the text. So now we have got more different models, like we have got the model which is capable of generating the images, videos, and so on. For simplicity, I'm going to talk about the text, which most of you are familiar with, that is ChatGPT or Google, Gemini, and so on. So the idea is it is able to generate the content. Remember, it's a novel content or a new content based on the training data that it has been trained upon. So that's the overall idea about this generative AI. Now, to give you a very simple example and demonstration about this generative AI, maybe we'll go ahead and have a quick interaction with an example generative AI itself. So let me, yeah, let me launch a browser and we'll quickly go to the chat GPT and we'll ask the same. So we'll ask the chat GPT as, what is generative AI? Now, if I ask the input for my generative AI, that is ChatGPT, it's able to generate the response and it gives us the clear definition. It says it's a class of AI models that's capable of generating the new knowledge or new content. And these models can learn the patterns and the structure from the given data set. And they use that knowledge to produce new data. Remember, guys, it is able to produce new data, which is similar to our original input. So it can generate text, images, music, and other type of content. So that's the core idea about this generative AI. All right. So is the definition and what exactly is generative AI? Is it clear to you guys? So if you're clear, please confirm by typing in as yes in the chat window. Rakshit, or if you're watching in the recording, so you can also post in the comments as well. Rakshita, Diksha, perfect. Samuel, Joe, perfect, guys. Okay, now that this definition is clear about what is generative AI, now the question is, how exactly are these models are trained? So let's move to the next part, that is how. Okay, let's talk about how. Now, how are these generative AI models are actually created or how it actually works? Now, just be with me. I'll just talk about few technical terms, but it's not complicated. It's very simple. Okay. So when we say how, first thing that we are going to do is we will generally pick up an architecture. So there are various architectures or types of model when we talk about generative AI. And one of the famous architecture and a well-used architecture is a transformer architecture. Okay, so we'll make use of this transformer architecture. Now, this transformer architecture, think of it as a technical component which has got the ability to analyze the text that we have got. So this transformer architecture, we'll be taking it up, and then we would go ahead and perform the training on a very large data set. Now, depending on the models that we choose, there can also be a variant of this transformer architecture as well. So just to give you an example, suppose if I'm training the model, let's say, let's consider one of the famous large language model from Google that's called as BERT language model. Okay, for the simplicity, I'll just take one of the architecture that is BERT language model, which is one of the large language model that we have got. So the way this model has been trained is this is based on the transformer architecture. It's based on transformer architecture, and this model is actually consisting of one of the technical component in the transformer that's called as the encoder. So it's based on stack of encoders. So we have got series of encoders that are stacked together in the case of this bird. Then how are we training? So we will go ahead and pick up a very large data set. So just to give an example, I'll say Google News data set. I'll get the all the text that I've got in my Google database. Then I would go ahead and perform two tasks, like train my BERT model in two tasks. One is masked language, uh, masked language task. Okay, I think masked language modeling, that's the technical term we call it. And the other task is next sentence prediction or next sequence prediction. So based on these two tasks, the language model has been trained. That is, BERT language model has been trained. So let's try to understand what are these tasks. So what is masked language modeling and what is next sentence prediction? So first, let's have a quick recap. This is a large language model, and this has been trained on a very large data set, which is based on text. And I've just mentioned that it has been trained on Google News data set. The task is masked language modeling and next sequence prediction. Using these two techniques, the model has been trained. So let's try to uncover what are these tasks so that you'll get a high level understanding as how it actually works. So let us say this is my BERT language model, which is a large language model that I've got. So here for the large language model, so when you're working with the ChatGPT or Gemini or the Gemini guys, so I've got a question for you. So how do you interact with this ChatGPT or Gemini? So let me know in the comment section. So if you're watching live, yeah, so I can see most of you are live. So let me know what is the kind of text, what is the kind of input that we send for this large language model? Okay, that's correct. It's a text. So we'll be dealing with text data, and the Google News contains a huge volume of text data. So what we'll be doing, we'll be sending in the text as an input for this BERT model, that is the large language model. So how do we send in right now? So I'll be sending the text. So let's talk about, let's say I've got a sentence that says as a quick brown fox jumped over a lazy dog. So let's assume this is a sentence that I've got. So obviously in my data set, if I consider a Google News data set as an example, I'll have n number of rows over there. So just for simplicity, I'll just consider a single row or a single sentence. So what I'll do, I'll pick up this sentence and I'll prepare a data such that Here, I'll go ahead and break this down into individual words. Okay. And in some places, I will go ahead and replace my existing word with a special term called mask. Okay. I will go ahead and replace it with special term called mask. So now what I'll do is I'm going to send in the sentences. Okay. The sentence which says as a quick brown mask jumped over a lazy mask. I'll just send in this as a sentence. Now I will expect my large language model to tell me what are the words that it should appear over here in place of mask. So I'm trying to fill in the places where the mask is present. And this task is actually called as mask language modeling. Okay, you're trying to fill in what has to be filled in place of mask. So is everyone with me so far? Is it clear? So if yes, please confirm yes. Excellent, guys. Thank you so much. Yes. So you can see that in place of mask, you just have to fill in what should be the exact word over there. Now that is what, okay, that is what the mask language modeling task is all about. And then I've mentioned one more task, okay, that's called as next sentence prediction. So here, in this case of next sentence prediction, what happens is you will go ahead and specify a sentence. Let's say you will mention this one sentence that says as a quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. And you want to predict what is the next sentence. That means you are going to generate the next sequence. So this is called as next sequence prediction. We'll do this activity on a very large data set. Now, once we have done this activity on a very large data set, we call that model as a foundation model. We also call it as a pre-trained model because this has been trained on a very large data set. Now, once this model has been trained on a very large data set, then the next thing that we will do is we would go ahead and use this model to perform the fine tuning on the required task. Or in some cases, we'll also just try to see if it is able to uh, like generate the sequences for the given data. So that's the overall idea or the intuition behind how these large language models are actually trained and how it works in the backend. All right. So like this, we have got various model, the chat GPT that we would use it. So that's another example of large language model. Here, the architecture will be different. So instead of stack of encoders, we'll have a stack of decoders component, and it's also based on the transformer architecture. And likewise, even this GPT model is also trained on very large data set. And then we'll have a pre-trained model, and you can see that there are various versions of GPT that are available. And there are some models which are multimodal large language models as well, which means it can generate the output in multiple format or it can take the input in multiple format. So those are all the key idea about the large language models. So you have learned what is generative AI and how this generative AI is actually prepared. Okay. Now let's talk about why should you learn this generative AI and why is it actually important? Well, as you can clearly see, the power of generative AI is it is able to help us to understand the human language, which was one of the major challenges that we had earlier. So it can help us to understand the human language. And another key thing is here with this large language model, now that this model has the capability to generate the output. So this has opened up a lot of possibilities for the business. It can be used in customer support in order to create the chatbot. It can help the people in understanding the large text data and try to comprehend what is present over there by making use of text summarization feature or in translation from one language to the another language, paraphrasing, and even it has been able to solve some of the complex problem as well, which we humans take time to do. So as a result of this has become, I can say, one of the potential to become an essential tool that we have got in our day-to-day life. And whether we know it or not, we are already using it as part of our application, even though we may not directly interacting it, but the applications that we use it on day-to-day basis are actually powered by this generative AI application. So it's very important to stay ahead in this technology development that's happening, you have to understand what is this generative AI and how it works. All right. So that takes care of why part. Now, the next question is, how do you get started? Or what should be the goal, or what should be the learning path should look like if someone is intending to learn about this generative AI? I'll spend just few minutes around it. There are various resources that you have got, I'm sure. So I'll just give you my opinion and my insights as how you should actually prepare it. See, one thing that is real right now is industry is requirement of this generative AI professionals. So there are two ways of preparing it. One, you can prepare from scratch and start working it. Or what I would recommend right now is learn about these generative AI products, whether it is Bird or GPT. And each of these product, they have actually released the APIs. APIs is nothing but they have released their product, which we as a developer can access it, use it in our application. So learn how you can use that APIs and start building the application. And once you get a hang of it, I think by that time you will be familiar, at least you would have put some effort to understand what these generative AI models are. So now that you have seen what is your end goal, then I would request you to start thinking backwards. If you want to build such generative AI products, what are the things that you need to know? First thing is programming. So Python is the most favorite programming, I'll say Python programming. Then learn about the various ways that you can analyze the data. So learn about the libraries. Maybe, so I'll say definitely include the data science libraries of Python, that is NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, Seaborn, and the ways that you can efficiently analyze the data. Then machine learning. Machine learning is one of the important toolkit. Even though you might be using generative AI, machine learning will help you to gain a lot of perspective about how the data works, how you can analyze the data, how you can evaluate the data. That still stays the same even when you start using in generative AI. Then deep learning, the various architectures that we have got. So importantly, RNN, LSTM, autoencoders, and the transformers. And then obviously, finally moving on to the LLM models that we have got. So this is how your overall curriculum should be if you're someone who wants to move into this roles of generative AI. It's an exciting space. There's a lot of developments that we see happening on a day-to-day basis. Each and every company, they'll share their progress. That's how that is being happening. And we get excited to see it. So it's an exciting space right now. There's a lot of questions whether it will stay for a long time or not. But for now, like I would highly believe that it is there to stay. So that's what my opinion, guys. Okay. Now, if you're someone who wants to take your career to the next level, and if you're someone who is very new to this programming and everything, so maybe it is worth checking out our course, which is Master the Python for Generative AI. And this is a live bootcamp that we have got. I'll share the link. I'll put in the link in the chat window. If any one of you who's interested, so it is worth checking out. It's a live bootcamp where you will learn everything from scratch. So when I say everything, the key topics will be covered as Python fundamentals, Python for data science, machine learning, deep learning, foundation, generative AI, which is the pathway that I would believe. And I'll be there in this live session as an instructor. So you can check out the course page if this is in alignment with your goals. So I'll see you on the class one. We've got most of the slots filled up. So ensure you get the early pricing benefit by registering early. So if you've got any question, guys, please feel free to let me know. So like this, we'll be conducting the webinars on similar topics as well. If you want me to pick up any specific topic that is on your mind, so do let me know in the chat section. So I'll ensure that we'll have it as part of our agenda in the upcoming session. So if you're watching recording, so which will be on our social media platform, ensure that you comment. So we'll ensure that we'll take your comment as a valuable input and we'll include it in our upcoming session. Okay, you can also share your feedback as well if you think anything that I can improve, that we can improve to provide you a better learning experience, or something that you want us to cover in these kind of session. So please do let us know as well. Okay, So thank you so much, guys, again for your time and joining in. So I look